Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. You guys have spoken, and this is the result of the races in Warhammer 3, especially with respect to Chaos, but I would say in general, one of the top priorities for the player base right now would be for Norsca to get a rework or some kind of improvement to make their campaigns better. This is an overwhelming opinion. I see it on Reddit, I see it in the comments, I see it in polls. Like, people want vampire counts, they want a gash, they want Tanquil, and they want improvements for Norsca. So maybe this is what CA should deliver for the next DLC, or maybe even for the Dogs of War DLC. I think it would be fitting to have a Norscan character with that, but I guess we'll see what ends up happening there. I wonder how much change is happening in Creative Assembly considering the reactions to the leak, the overwhelming reactions to the leak that we've gotten. Let me talk about the issues of Norsca, because there are many, many issues. First off, your lords. You only have one lord choice and two demons that you can get with maxing out either Tzeentch or Nurgle. There's pros and cons with that, but suffice to say, I don't think maxing out Nurgle is worth it, because yeah, you get a great unclean one to lead one of your armies, but honestly, I'll be quite honest on that subject, it's like going Slaanesh seems like the better option. Upkeep benefits, Lord of Crew rank, and you can only max out one of these, so you can't max out all of them. Maxing out Tzeentch seems like a waste of damn time. So you only have one lord choice, and it's not really a great one. You get Marauder Chieftains. Decently armored, they can get the War Mammoths, which is pretty powerful, but yeah, outside of that, it's pretty bland and generic. They don't even have a skill line, a melee skill line. No, this is how bad the situation is with these guys, that they don't even have a melee skill line. What you can do is go for a choice with one of the gods. So you can either go with Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, Tzeentch. I'd recommend going with Nurgle for your Marauder Lords, because regeneration on a War Mammoth is pretty damn sweet. Not gonna lie about that. But these guys are genuinely the worst Lord choice in the entire game. Decent in combat, but without those skills, they fall behind considerably compared to anyone else, especially in a long campaign. So that is a problem. And oh, if you're playing Norsca, do expect a long campaign. A very long campaign to get anywhere in that campaign. Now, the second issue has to do with their economy, or their non-existent economy. Their land-based economy only goes up to 150 income. It is relatively cheap. The structures are at the very least relatively cheap compared to other races, with the exception of, a handful of things at higher tiers, or specifically tier 5, but everything up until that point is pretty reasonable in terms of the price. But you're going to have significantly less money. The problem with that is Warhammer 3 is about having multiple armies and dealing with various enemies on their different fronts. And Norsca is covering many fronts. You've got the Castways to the north, you've got the Dark Elves and High Elves to the west, you've got Be'lakor to potentially deal with. You've got a lot of problems. At the very least, you do have the vast majority of the climate in the game at your disposal, with the exception of the desert, so don't do what the Norscans did in the past and piss off Cetra, because that's not going to end well for you. But still, significant limitations. You can argue, well, ports can generate a lot of money. Yeah, but ports are expensive to upgrade, and it only goes up to 800 for a tier 3 one, starting at 200. Again, just the cost. You can improve that with the gods. But before talking about the gods, let's talk about the roster. It's incredibly limited and weak in quite a few ways, because you're looking at units with fairly low level of armor and really a bad level of leadership for many of these guys. Some of the higher tier stuff like Marauder Champions, Marauder Horsebasters, when trolls have better freaking leadership than Marauders, or okay, in this campaign, I do have some benefits with respect to that, but still, when freaking trolls can end up being better in that respect and even give you encourage, yeah, there's not encourage. I'm a bit wrong on that. Just siege attacker. Yeah, there is something really, really broken about that. There is some good high level stuff, but obviously cost is going to play a major role in that, because again, limited money. What's even worse about the unit roster is you do have some decent enough heroes that you can get at tier 3, but the most important one, The Bale Fiend, who gives you casualty replenishment, can only be recruited at tier 4. Trog starts with 1, but the problem is having to get to tier 4 to even get 1 casualty replenishment hero is not exactly great, I gotta tell you. And Norsca's growth isn't exactly exceptional. It's decent, it gets the job done, and with the ports certainly. Problem with ports though, to talk about that a bit more, the AI has the tendency of attacking settlements via the sea far more often than they do via the land. So you having all of those ports just makes you more vulnerable. And while AI aggression has been turned down, given the fact that you can take a lot of casualties in battle, which can reduce your faction strength ranking, don't be surprised if a lot of factions just look at you as free real estate. That can happen, that does happen. And also, it's kind of sad that the Norscans actually hate one another, so a war between all the Norscans can happen very early in a campaign. Like, granted, over here I did start a war with the faction here, and I did go for the scalings myself because easy confederation option. But the problem with going with confederation is you end up with a lot of territory that's underdeveloped, you lack money, ports are expensive, so you end up suffering significantly from that. Long term it can work, but here's the problem. While you can gain a lot of favor with the gods and gain some significant benefits over here, like lowered recruit rank, casualty replenishment to make up for the lack you have, it takes a long time. Norsca was a faction designed, or a race designed, for Warhammer 1. Not Warhammer 2, Warhammer 1. They were a pre-order bonus for 2, but they were developed for Warhammer 1. It kind of made sense there, and they were pretty decent by the end of Warhammer 1. They were already outdated in Warhammer 2, and right now they are the worst cast race in the game. For all the issues Tzeentch, Slaanesh have, and even Khorne have, they pale in comparison to the issues Norsca has. Glass cannon units, well, you got a lot of glass, but you don't have as many cannons as Slaanesh has, for instance, or the powerful magic that Tzeentch has. I mean, it's just a really bad situation to be dealing with. What's even worse, let's say you want to get favor with the gods. Okay, ignore the auto-resolve here, this is modded. Your auto-resolve is actually pretty freaking terrible as Norsca. You will take casualties, a lot of casualties in battle, as well with a lot of these units. You can make it work, but yeah, range-centric factions are going to obliterate you, which you will be fighting, because the Empire, Dwarves, Elves hate you, one way or another. Well, let's say you take over a settlement, because this is the main way to increase favor with the gods. Well, here's the problem. To gain favor with the god, you gotta raise the settlement for that particular god in order to get that favor. But you lose out on the sacking income. If you sack the settlement, you have to wait 1 turn to raise it. And then you may want to occupy it because you can gain a lot of money through selling settlements that you don't need. So over here it's actually in my interest, obviously, to take the Black Pit and, I know, sell it to the Empire or Festus or something along those lines. So it ends up being a really, really bad system. Oh, but you can get monster hunts, you might say. Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. The monster hunts, in theory, could be good if they worked. The problem is there's plenty of bugs with getting them to work. Let's say you get an assignment to raid Mindenheim, right? You get so many assignments that take you so long to go across the world, you're wasting freaking time. And you're not necessarily a fast traveler around the world. You're not Oxyotl, you're not Elspeth. You travel around the world slowly. You know, Wulfric, by the way, fun fact, Wulfric should actually be a world traveler. He should have that mechanic because he has that mechanic in the lore. That's kind of his whole shtick as a character. But he doesn't have it. So he has a teleporting ship, basically. That's the whole thing. Or a part of a ship, anyway, that allows him teleportation. So he should really have that, but he doesn't, so he ends up suffering. Imagine playing a raiding campaign where you could teleport around the world, pick your fights, and then just teleport back. That would be a great campaign, as opposed to the generic crap we have. Basically, Oxyotl's mechanic, or even Elspeth's mechanic, one way or another, or Bellacor's mechanic. Yeah, Be'lakor plays more like Wulfric than Wulfric actually does in the game. That's pretty sad, in point of fact. I understand that, you know, Oxyotl was very late in development in Warhammer 2, but, like, yeah, Norsca does need those kind of improvements. Just lots of bad mechanics, limited unit roster, bad economy, a lot of people hate you, just fundamentally bad campaigns. And it's quite a shame because Norsca can be really fun to play. Like their Unirostra is like, who doesn't love berserkers or mammoths or Fimnir or werewolves to throw into battle? That's an awesome Unirostra. Like there's some awesome things, but yeah, the actual campaign mechanics don't really hold a candle. And there's better campaigns if you just want to focus on the battle aspect. Like, I personally don't care much for him, but if you just care about the battle aspect, you can play, I don't know, Scarbrand or Falkia or etc., and have a much better time overall than this. So yeah, Norsca needs a rework. These are the reasons why. There's other things as well, more characters. There's a lot of named Norscan characters in the lore. You know, a Skaggy campaign as Norsca could be very interesting, or X, Y, and Z campaign, right? Or Norscan in Cafe, for instance. Just an example. That's all I had to say. Kostin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.